Sandalphon is the newest character added to Granblue Fantasy Relink, and he is by far my favorite character in the entire game. Not only is he able to dodge out of the way of incoming attacks, but he can also do so while dealing tons of damage. He's also got some of the craziest skills and combos in the entire game, and his damage output is absolutely nuts, reaching over 60 million damage very easily. I am very excited to talk about Sandalphon, so without any further ado, hello everyone, my name is Dark Hero and welcome back to another Granblue Fantasy Relink video. In this build guide video I will be showcasing my endgame build as well as how to best optimize Sandalphon so that you can get the most out of him. And with that, let's get started. And let's start by taking a look at Sandalphon's kit, going over his basic attack combo first, and if you just spam the attack button you're going to get this very basic combo that's not going to deal a lot of damage and you don't even get a combo finisher. However, Sandalphon has the same mechanic as Zeta or Siegfried, where you actually need to time your attacks and make sure that you input the buttons perfectly at the right time to be able to use this combo that will deal more damage and will then lead into a combo finisher, like so. Now you may have noticed that as Sandalphon hits the target enemy, you will be filling up his own gauge like so. I'll talk about this gauge in a moment because it is very important, but if you simply mash the attack button you're not really going to accomplish anything and only the final hit of that attack combo is going to count towards filling up the gauge. On the other hand, if you perfectly time your attacks, all of them will be counting towards filling up your gauge. So you should spend some time with Sandalphon in the training area to be able to get the timing down for all of these combos, to be able to get the most out of them. And of course, as you saw right there, doing the combo finisher is going to further increase your gauge. And also doing a link attack like so is also going to allow you to fill up your gauge even quicker. And of course, you can go from a link attack into a combo finisher as well. Now, as for your heavy attack, if you simply tap it, you're going to be getting this light step. You can input it into any direction and you're able to move around like so, and this dash is confirmed to have iframes and you can use it to be able to dodge incoming attacks, move into a more beneficial position for you, and you can also follow up this light step with a basic attack that is essentially going to act as a gap closer or a lunge. Now it should be noted that the light step ranged attacks that you perform while you are in your Archangel mode actually do a ton of damage, as you can see. Like, these are some crazy damage numbers that also give you some mobility, with iframes I should add. And so while Sandalphon's basic attack combo looks insanely flashy and very cool, while you are in your Archangel mode, I think it's actually better to simply be spamming this, and you can even guard cancel it like so to be able to spam it much quicker, and I think that this is going to result in you dealing a lot more damage. Now, a very cool thing about the light step is that you are actually able to use it to avoid an incoming attack, and even if you are in the middle of a combo, you are going to retain that position in the combo so long as you perfectly time the button input. Now, if you hold the heavy attack button, you are instead going to be manually charging up your gauge. And as you can see, this is not very practical, you are essentially just a sitting duck, and this is going to take an extremely long amount of time to be able to charge it up all the way, but it is something that you can use whenever the boss goes into bloodthirst and you're no longer able to hit them. And once your Archangel gauge is full, you will be able to enter your Archangel state by simply holding the heavy attack button. And whenever you enter Archangel mode, a lot of your moves are going to change a lot. Not only that, but you gain Stout Heart, which is going to make you uninterruptible and take 20% less damage, and you also gain Guts, both of which are very handy buffs. Now, what exactly changes whenever you enter Archangel mode? Your basic attack combo is going to change up a lot, as you will see right here, as you unleash all of these powerful slashes that go into this really cool combo finisher that you can see right here, that deals a lot of damage and looks very flashy. And additionally, your light step now seemingly covers a bigger distance but also becomes a ranged projectile, which means that of course you are able to dodge out of the way of any incoming attacks, all the while dealing increased damage. However, that is not all. Now, as you can see, your Archangel gauge is going to deplete over time, but one thing that you want to make sure that you always do before it actually runs out all the way is to make sure that you hold the charge attack button just before the gauge runs out, which is going to do this very powerful strike that looks incredible and deals a ton of damage. In addition to all of this, all of Sandalphon's skills are going to drastically change, whether you use them in base form or in Archangel mode. It is also very important to mention that Sandalphon has access to two different Skybound arts. So if I use it in his base form, it's going to perform this cool animation where he goes into his Archangel mode, and fires off these cool blasts that do a lot of damage. However, if you perform your Skybound art while you are in your Archangel mode, you're going to be rewarded with the iconic Paradise Lost that is going to deal even more damage and looks incredibly awesome. Look at that. So with that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at Sandalphon's skills. Starting with what is Sandalphon's most important skill by far. Talvio is a skill very similar to one that you can find on Yodarha, that is going to do a 12-hit combo, and you need to perfectly land the timing for each of them. And if you land the final hit of the combo, you will do that powerful hit that deals a ton of damage, but more importantly, it will entirely fill up your Archangel gauge. So you can use this at the very start of combat just to be able to enter your Archangel mode as soon as possible, like so. And remember that you can do a combo finisher right after just to deal more damage, and then you go into your Archangel mode and are ready to deal more damage. Another very cool thing about Talvio that should be noted is that, much like with Yodarha's, you're able to dash around all over the place so that you can reposition yourself and act accordingly, so this skill becomes a lot better because of that. Now the next skill on the list is going to be Alone in Heaven. By activating this skill, Sandalphon will enter this defensive stance, where he is then able to parry an incoming attack, and if you don't get hit by anything, he will eventually follow up with that attack. But if you actually perform a parry with Alone in Heaven, not only will you do that powerful attack that deals plenty of damage, but you will also paralyze the enemy. And for whatever reason, it seems that this paralysis is longer than other paralysis in the game, though I am not certain if that's the case. And again, whenever you do this, you are able to follow it up with a combo finisher. Now the next skill on the list is going to be Ecliptica, where Sandalphon fires off these 4 different projectiles that actually have a pretty insane range, and then of course you are able to follow it up with a combo finisher. And if you are away from the enemy, that is actually going to get you very close to it, so that you are more able to reliably hit it against the enemy. It's a very straightforward skill, but sometimes that is exactly what you need. Now the next skill is going to be No Way Out. This is essentially your gap closing skill that, whenever you perform, allows you to go into this circle slashing motion that deals a lot of AoE damage, and of course you can follow it up with a combo finisher. And while you are in Archangel mode, you will still be able No Way Out, and while you are in your Archangel mode, you are still going to be able to use No Way Out, but the damage it deals, the number of hits it does, as well as the radius and overall movement speed are all going to be increased. And again, you're able to follow it up with a combo finisher, like so. Now the next skill is going to be Breath of Life, which quite simply is going to allow you to do AoE healing for yourself and the entire party. And while you are in Archangel mode, you will still be able to use Breath of Life, and whenever you do it, it's going to heal a lot more. As you can see, I'm healing for 69,000 health, and you're also going to be cleansing yourself as well as your allies of any debuffs. Now the following skill is going to be the Power of One, which quite simply is a party-wide buff that is going to provide Sandalphon and the entire party critical hit rate, attack buff and defense buff, all of which gaining a boost of 20%. It is certainly a nice buff to have on pretty much every single party, and alongside Phantasmagoria is the only way that you can increase the critical hit rate of your allies, though by the time you reach the endgame, pretty much everyone will have their critical hit rate above 95%, and honestly a 20% attack and defense increase is not all that significant. Now the next skill is going to be Ethereal Prison. Using this skill, Sandalphon is going to create this vast orb that is going to deal a very decent amount of damage, and whenever you do this, you are going to be applying a special debuff on the enemy that is essentially going to be giving everyone in the party War Elemental, basically making it so that every single element is going to deal 20% more damage against the enemy, although this is not going to stack with the War Elemental Sigil. Now in theory, a skill like this could actually be very powerful, allowing for players to be able to remove the War Elemental Sigil from their build and instead replace it with something else like the new Echo Sigils. That being said, by this point in the game, most of the players you're going to be encountering online are all running with the War Elemental Sigil, and given that the debuff doesn't even last for a very long duration, I do believe that if you choose to go with this skill and remove War Elemental from your builds, you are essentially just going to be gimping your damage for no good reason. Additionally, you are also able to use Ethereal Prison while you are in your Archangel mode, and doing so will of course in this attack dealing more damage, but you will also dispel a buff that the enemy has whenever you do this. And the final skill is going to be Relink. I'm not quite sure how you're supposed to spell this. Whenever you use this, Sandalphon is going to go into the air and charge up this massive powerful attack that is going to deal a ton of damage. As you can see, whenever I do this, I am able to deal 1.4 million damage, and of course you're able to follow it up with a combo finisher like so. And if you are worried about the charge time of this skill, you can actually cancel it by just dodging like that, and the cooldown of the skill will not be wasted. And again, you can also use the skill Relink while you are in your Archangel mode, and doing so is going to result in you dealing a lot more damage, and you can follow it up with the big Archangel mode finisher that is going to put you back into your regular form. Now, as far as my recommendation goes for Sandalphon skills, I personally believe that these 4 are going to be the best ones to go with Talvio being pretty much mandatory, as it is going to allow you to go into your Archangel mode a lot quicker, and both Ecliptica and No Way Out are skills that you are able to use very often. They deal a lot of damage and you can use them very quickly, and combining them with your combo finisher will allow you to build up the gauge a lot quicker. And finally there is Relink, which does a lot of damage and very high stun power, so you should save it for when you are just about to break the monster, so that you are able to guarantee triggering a link attack. Although if I wanted to play it a little bit safer, I could replace No Way Out with Alone in Heaven just to have a parry that also paralyzes the enemy. Now that being said, if all you care about is damage when it comes to Sandalphon, he's actually one of the very easiest characters to play. Because to achieve the highest results possible, quite simply everything you're going to do is essentially going to be use Talvio to get into your Archangel mode as quickly as possible. Like so. And now that we are in Archangel mode, you're going to use your No Way Out, followed up by the combo finisher. And then you're just going to be spamming the light step because these quite simply deal a lot of damage. And I believe it's actually a DPS loss to go for these combo finishers. So you're quite simply just going to do this as much as possible, and the damage you're going to be able to deal is pretty insane. And of course, whenever No Way Out is available to be used again, you go ahead and use it. And of course, make sure that whenever your meter is about to run out, you go ahead and use the Zohar Strike, the big powerful combo finisher. And whenever you are back to your base form, you're going to need to use your skills together with their combo finishers, trigger link attacks and all of that to build up your gauge as quickly as possible. But again, Sandalphon is just a very simple character to get used to and to deal a lot of damage with, so you are going to be able to excel with him very easily. But now let's take a look at my recommended build for Sandalphon so that you can get the most out of him. Starting with, of course, the over Masteries. You're going to want to max out your critical hit rate, followed by skill damage cap up, and finally, if you are lucky enough, you would be able to get Skybound art damage cap up. As you can see, I have 20% crit rate, as well as a 16% increase to my damage cap for normal attacks as well as skills. Now, as for your weapons, much like with Toyen and Sophon, there's only going to be 2 options, so you're going to want to go ahead and craft the World Ender and ascend it all the way, which is going to end up giving you Sigil booster, damage cap, and supplementary damage level 15, on top of attack level 25, which can actually come in handy. Now, as for the Rhinestones, given that we have received a ton of new ones with a new update, as you can see, the one that I have currently equipped comes with stun power level 20, supplementary damage level 15, and stronghold level 10. Now, of course, I would like to replace Stronghold with a better trait, but being able to gain supplementary damage from one of these Rhinestones allows me to be much more versatile with my build, and I do believe that Stun Power is a valuable trait to have. That being said, if you are able to, for example, have a crit rate level 20 Rhinestone that also comes with, for example, Tyranny and supplementary damage, that would of course be one of the very best options for you to go with. Now, when it comes to builds, I've actually made 2 different ones for Sandalphon, one that uses the Lucilia sigils and one that does not use them, so you are going to be able to easily replicate these builds depending on which point you are at in the game. Now, before we go over the 2 builds that I have made for Sandalphon, let's take a look at his unique sigils. Starting with Ein. This sigil is essentially the Terminus weapon effect that is going to set your max HP to 45,000 while raising your attack by 50% and at the same time raising your damage cap by 100%. So you get one of the biggest boosts in damage in the entire game with the trade-off that you're going to be capping your max HP. Now up next we have the Supreme Primarch's Awe. This is going to boost the damage cap of your perfectly timed attacks by 20%, as well as give them an additional gauge gain by 20% so that you are able to enter Archangel mode a lot quicker. It's a very nice quality of life sigil to have, especially in some of the longer fights where you are not going to be able to kill the boss very quickly, and so you will have no other choice than to do normal attack combos to build up your gauge and go into Archangel mode. That being said, in some of the easier content in the game where you are able to actually destroy the boss before they have a chance to deal with you, then you are not going to need this sigil as much because you are going to deal a ton of damage when you first transform. And now on the other hand we have the Supreme Primarch's Nimbus. This is going to restore Sandalphon's health by 50% and give him a 20% defense increase whenever Chromatic Wings ends. So you get these bonuses whenever your Primarch state ends and you go back to your original form. Personally, I don't find this sigil to be very powerful. In fact, I actually do believe that it is quite weak, but you might be able to get both of these from the Awakening sigil, so until you have something better, like for example, the Supreme Primarch's Awe together with Tyranny for example, then this can be your alternative. And finally we have the Supreme Primarch's Warpath. This sigil will boost the amount of gauge that you gain whenever you use Light Step to perfectly dodge an attack, or whenever you are in your Archangel mode, it will actually replenish 20% more of your gauge whenever you do this. Additionally, it is quite simply going to give Sandalphon a 25% enhanced damage when you are in your Archangel mode. And this sigil by itself is pretty insane, because as I explained before, if you're trying to do an optimal damage rotation with Sandalphon, you're going to be essentially spamming Light Step after Light Step. And as you do so, you're going to inevitably be dodging attacks, which means that you're going to be able to maintain the Archangel state for much longer, and thus you're able to deal even more damage. It really is a fantastic sigil that you should have equipped at all times, and now that we are able to get Warpath plus sigils, you could end up with a really powerful combination on an already incredibly powerful sigil. But now that we have gone over Sandalphon sigils, let's go over the two builds that I have made for him. Now, I have actually made two different builds, one that uses the Lucilia sigils and one that doesn't, just so that you are able to have different options when it comes to making a perfect build. Because quite honestly, the difference between having the Lucilia sigils and not having them isn't actually that big of a difference. I believe that it ultimately goes down to about 11% less damage, but whenever you already deal so much damage in this game, I do believe that having access to more utility sigils is going to matter more in the endgame. Now that being said, this is the build that I am currently running on him. As you can see, I am running all of the unique sigils, and then I have 4 different damage cap sigils. Now as you can see, these two come with concentrated fire. You are able to get these rolls from using the synthesis at the Knickknack Shack, and the reason why I went for concentrated fire is that the projectile you use while you are in your Prime Angel state is going to count as a ranged attack, so it is going to benefit from this 50% increase in damage. And because that is one of the best damaging tools that Sandalphon has in his kit, you're going to want to boost it as much as possible. Now these two damage cap sigils come both with Nimble Onslaught, because again you're going to be spamming the Light Step as much as you are eventually going to be dodging attacks, which means that you're going to be able to trigger this effect, which will extend your invincibility for 3 additional seconds, so now you'll be invincible for 6 seconds and not just 3 seconds, and each time that you do it you will also boost your SBA gauge gain by 5% and reduce your skill cooldown by 5%, all of which are pretty fantastic bonuses. Up next, I have a couple of Tyranny 5 sigils. Again, you're able to combine these at the Knickknack Shack, and they're just a very straightforward way for me to boost my attack and be able to reach the damage cap very easily. Although of course it comes with the downside that I will be reducing my max HP by 20%. Now the next sigil is the new Berserker Echo, and this sigil is absolutely insane. So what this sigil does is, once you reach 20,000 attack, you will start to have a chance to trigger additional supplementary damage, and this chance will become guaranteed once you reach 25,000 attack. And this is of course fantastic because you are adding on top of the supplementary damage that you already have, so you will now have an extra 40% supplementary damage. And as you can see, currently on my build I am at over 25,000 attack, and thus Berserker Echo is going to be active at all times. Speaking of which, I also have a supplementary damage 5 plus sigil, which combined with the Sandalphon Ascension weapon, and again the Right Stone that I have, I'm able to reach max level for supplementary damage, which is going to guarantee me that I get that 20% supplementary damage on top of everything that I do. And combining this with Berserker Echo is going to allow you to deal a lot more damage every single time you hit the enemy. I then of course also have the War Elemental Sigil to deal 20% additional damage to anything in the game, as it will make it so that all of my attacks count as being of a superior element. Now with the update 1.3.0 there was the addition of the War Elemental Plus Sigil that I believe is about a 0.7 chance of dropping from the Behemoth quest, so more likely than not you don't have access to it, but of course if you manage to get it, that is going to be a better replacement. And finally I have a crit rate sigil that comes with stamina as well, just so that I am able to further boost my attack, so that I am able to hit the damage cap, and so that I am able to reach the 25,000 attack threshold. And again, I could always have a better right stone, which would mean that I could replace this crit rate sigil with something that would provide me with some more utility, because that is the flexibility that not having the Lucilia sigils is going to offer you. Another thing that I could potentially change about this build is the Awakening Sigil, because again it comes with the Nimbus, which in my opinion it just isn't a very good trait. So I could for example replace it with this one right here, which would give me Guts, this one would give me Stun Power, and this one would give me Dodge Payback, all the while keeping the Supreme Primarch's Awe, which is much better than Nimbus. So that is actually what I'm going to do. And now this right here is that same exact build, but now using the Lucilia sigils. As you can see, I'm running a couple of Gamma Plus sigils and one Alpha Plus sigil, with the Gamma Plus raising the damage cap of everything that you have by 30%, and also granting you a shield that nullifies up to 50,000 damage after you use your Skybound art, and the Alpha is going to boost the damage cap of your normal attacks, and that of course includes the light step dodge with the projectile, going all the way up to 40% at max level. Now this is still a build in progress, because there's a couple of things that I would like to change to make this perfect, because ideally rather than having just a single Alpha Sigil, I would actually have two of them. But because I currently don't have, for example, critical hit rate with the Primarch's Awe and Warpath, or Concentrated Fire for example, I have opted to go with a damage cap sigil that comes with the Concentrated Fire that I melded, and I do believe that that is going to be more beneficial for now, until again I'm able to get a better Right Stone with critical hit rate and supplementary damage, or one of these sigils with a good secondary trait, so that I am able to add Concentrated Fire somewhere else on the build. But as you can see, Sandalphon is absolutely insane as a character, capable of doing millions and millions of damage with very little effort. I strongly believe that he is by far one of the best characters in the game, probably in the top 3 even, and personally the more that I play with him, the more that I end up liking him. Although maybe it's a bit silly that the optimal way to deal damage with him is to just keep on spamming the same button over and over again. That being said, let me know how you guys feel about Sandalphon. I personally love his design, and he is the character that I was looking forward to playing with the most, so I'm very happy to see that he is this powerful and also doesn't have a unique mechanic that makes him feel bad to play. I still want to make a few more videos for Granblue Fantasy Relink, so in the meantime please subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more. And with that being said, my name is Dark Hero, thank you all so much for watching, and as always, happy hunting!